Ah, the Ouija board. Is it merely the subconscious? Or is it really spirits in the afterlife? Hell, maybe it's even a demon. As someone who has used the Ouija board, I can honestly say it's definitely not the subconscious. At least, not in all cases. But don't just take my word for it. Here are some true lip-trembling stories with the Ouija board. The Ouija brings dread. Last year, my best friend and I decided to experiment with the Ouija board, just to see if it worked. We made our own out of paper and used a regular drinking glass as a pointer, so we were pretty skeptical. We were in for a shock. It took a while for the board to warm up, but once it did, it became apparent that we were surrounded by relatives who had passed away. The glass moved extremely slowly, and there was nothing scary being said or done. However, halfway through our session, two of our other friends came bursting into the room, laughing and joking. Once they calmed down, we got back to the board. This time, the glass moved extremely fast. We could hardly keep our fingers on. It started spelling out names and words without us even asking questions. The words spelled out murder and lust. We ended the session immediately, as we were pretty freaked out. After that, everything went back to normal for a few days. But then I started waking up at 3 AM, every night, with an unexplainable feeling of dread. This waking up continued for a few weeks, and I started becoming depressed for no reason. Then one night, at about 1 in the morning, my friend was walking me home. As we were walking up the road, he claimed he saw a black figure of a man leaning on a fence, staring at us. We laughed and joked about the place being haunted. We did used to hear bells chiming every night on that road. That night, I woke up again, but this time I was being pinned face down on my bed by what felt like a man. I tried to struggle, but I couldn't move. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. He started speaking in my ear, but I don't know what he said. Then he was gone. I hid under my covers, like that would help, and soon fell asleep. When I woke up the next morning, I put it down to a nightmare, though it felt so real. A few days later, we had family visiting. My grandma, who claims to be very perceptive, came in and said she felt there was a presence in the house. My mum said she thought so too, ever since I did the Ouija board in my bedroom, but she didn't think it was harmful. My grandma disagreed and said she thought it was evil. The next bit is really hard for me to explain, as I don't really know how I felt. As they were arguing, I began to get the same dreadful feeling I had so many other nights, and I began to feel something was wrong. It felt as though I was being pulled into a tunnel, further and further away from the room I was in. I tried to tell my mum I didn't feel right, but I couldn't make myself talk or move. It felt as though something was trying to control me. I finally managed to make myself talk, but I screamed it. "There's something wrong with me." The next thing I knew, my sister was beside me, hugging me, and I was crying and shaking uncontrollably. My family said I'd had some kind of seizure. We got a priest to bless the house, and while he was doing so, all the pipes in the house made a huge screaming noise. They didn't stop till he'd finished the prayer. After that, everything went back to normal. I still can't explain what happened to me. It scares me to think of it. Ouija triggers a poltergeist. This happened around 2002 in Potsdam, Germany. I was 11 and this was my first experience. My sister, who was 12 years old, decided to try a Ouija session with a little self-made cards on which the letters were drawn, a table and a glass. She and two classmates were in the living room of our little apartment. My mother had a Ouija experience when she was young and was fine with my curious sister's idea, and she took me and my little brother to the kitchen to not disturb my sister. We waited for some minutes in there. I stared lazily at the door to the corridor. The door was mostly glass, and I could see everything that was going on behind it. Then, I saw a person walk past the kitchen. He could only have come from the living room, and seemingly was heading for the exit. I was puzzled. First, the man was pitch black, and as tall as an ordinary grown-up. Second, there was no audible sound of the living room door, nor footsteps. He could not have been there. I brushed it off. I believed my mind was playing tricks on me. Then my little brother, who sat across from me, asked, "Did you see that shadow too?" I was astonished, and we shared impressions. Shortly after that, my sister and her friends came into the kitchen and stated that the session just ended because the spirit left. This was the start of paranormal activity around us. Even as we moved on to another house, it went on. Because of my sister's innocent curiosity in the Ouija board, our home became haunted. It started, in most cases, when it got dark and our parents went to sleep, so they never witnessed anything and thought we were kinda nuts. Lights switched on when my sister and I headed for a dark room. From shadows, to lights going on and off, to knocks on doors, to doors that flew open, to footsteps and cold spots. There was also an extremely nasty smell in one of the bathrooms. It came without warning, and quickly left. It was clear that this was no normal smell that you could imagine existing in the bathroom. It was like something foul had lain in the tub for a long time. Once, something pushed on my mattress from beneath while I was lying on it and reading a comic. When we were 16 and 15, it all ended because we started to ignore every unnatural occurrence. We had no nerve or power left to stand any more of this game. Fortunately, the spirits cooperated, and I haven't seen or felt any more paranormal activity. The Winged Shadow. This occurred about 13 years ago, when I was 15 in a city near Perth, Western Australia. At the time, several strange things were happening, which I believed had to do with the seance my friend and I had played around with. Nothing much exciting happened during the seance, and to be honest, I thought my friend was pushing the glass and never thought much of it, until I began waking up at 3:15 AM. Every morning I'd wake with a genuine sensation of total terror. I would lie awake in bed with the covers over my head, as I had a strange sensation of being watched and was afraid of what was in the room with me. I would lie there like that until the sun came up. I was always terrified of looking in a certain direction, and upon inspection, I found the glass which had been used for the seance. This took me by surprise, as the glass had been disposed of, so I was certain that the glass was the reason for my sleepless nights. I once again disposed of the glass. However, I kept experiencing the same feelings, and once again, upon inspection, came across the same glass that I had already thrown in the garbage twice. This time, I was determined to get rid of it, so I took it outside and smashed it on the ground. I continued waking at 3:15 AM, to the minute every night without fail, and I started seeing strange, dark shadows. The shadows started as perfect black balls, which would circle my room, then seem to disappear through my window. I put this off to paranoia and lack of sleep, and simply tried to ignore it and go back to sleep, still with my head under the covers. Other people started noticing the shadow too, and at normal waking hours, saying that the end of the house where my room was seemed a bit creepy. Gradually, the shadows seemed to get bigger, but I continued to ignore them, until one night. The family dog woke me, again at 3:15 AM. He was sitting next to my bed, and he was making a crying sound. I figured the dog needed to go out, so I got out and let him outside. As soon as I was back in bed, the dog was at my window, squeaking and carrying on, so I got back up and let him back inside. The dog followed me to my room, and once again sat by my bed whimpering. I then took him back outside, and even though he sat at my window still crying, I made him stay out there a bit, because I didn't want him coming back in and waking me up. I eventually gave in and let the dog back inside. The bathroom light was on, letting light flood the hallway as I walked back to my room, where the dog started growling. I moved closer to the bathroom door so the dog could see it was me, and I was worried he was growling at my shadow. I called him up to me and he was still growling and said, "Hey, it's only me. Come in. What's the matter?" The dog walked slowly towards me, still growling, and sat next to my leg, growling at something behind me. In a flash, my thoughts raced to, "Oh my god, there's someone in the house," and turned around and started running down the hallway. What I saw was something that has never left my mind, and something no one has ever believed when I have told them. I saw what seemed like a huge bird. It had huge, outstretched wings that would have touched the roof and almost the floor. Its body ended where the wings did, and neither seemed to touch the ground. As it followed me down the hallway, the wings stayed outstretched, and it seemed to glide as it moved. I did notice a small head in between the wings, but no features that I recall, and the head seemed hooded rather than round and connected to the body without a neck. The creature seemed more shadow-like than of flesh, and as much as I tried to put it down to my own shadow, I am certain that what I experienced and saw was real, and could have in no way been my own shadow. I remember mostly the wings, and the enormity of them as they towered over me, and how it moved as it followed after me, until it slipped into another room. I am not sure what happened to it after this, but my sister, who was older and didn't believe in anything paranormal, had some strange experiences involving a black shadow and some kind of sleep paralysis, where she was surrounded by a bunch of people laughing at her as the black shadow circled over the top.